Welcome to another segment on Chapter 6. In this segment, we're going to look at total fixed costs and total costs, and then average fixed costs and average total costs. And this will round out the last segment where we covered the variable costs. So this is fairly straightforward, these costs that we look at. We defined total variable costs previously, so now we define total fixed costs as costs that do not vary with the level of output. They stay fixed no matter how much we're producing. So we'll get some good examples of those. And then we also have average fixed costs, and we get at it by just dividing by the quantity of output. So our average fixed cost is just equal to the total fixed cost divided by the total output. That gives us our average fixed cost. Okay, so then how do we get to total cost and average total cost? Very similarly, total cost is going to be the sum of both total variable and total fixed. We already had it up on the slide earlier. I just drew it out myself. That's what total cost is. So the average total cost, you just divide by the quantity of output. So ATC is just going to be total cost divided by the total output. So now we've got all of our costs defined and the formula is set for them. So let's pause for a second, try and think of examples of fixed costs and variable costs. When we talked about variable costs, certainly the biggest one that we talk about is labor. As I want to produce more of a particular product, I have to hire more labor. So that's a variable cost. If I'm building picnic tables and I want to build more picnic tables, I need to get more wood. Buying of the more wood, that's a variable cost. So it would be buying screws and nails to help put the picnic tables together. That would be variable cost. But the most important one we look at will be labor, the cost of hiring more workers. But on the fixed cost side, what we're trying to say here is that no matter how much we're producing, we still pay this fixed cost, whether we're producing 0, as long as we still have the business going, or whether we're producing 100 units or 1,000 units, we still have the same fixed cost. So things like that would include, say, my insurance. I have a little business where I'm producing something and I have to have insurance on the building. That's fixed no matter if I'm working a lot or a little. I still pay the same monthly insurance fee. Or things like utilities, perhaps. If I pay a flat rate for all my gas and electric per month, I have to keep the building warm, particularly in the winter, that would be a fixed cost as well. So those are the types of costs that you would use under a fixed cost scenario. And another example of fixed cost would be rent. For example, if I have a small business and I don't own it, well, I'm renting the space to run my business. That rent is going to be a certain fixed cost per month. So let's bring us to one more slight change, but a really critical change in understanding. Recall that we defined marginal cost earlier in a previous segment as the change in total variable cost over the change in output. So it's the incremental extra cost we incur when we decide to produce one more unit of output. Well, this is a big sentence here. Since fixed costs do not change with total output, then total costs will change the same way variable costs do. And it's because fixed costs don't change. So try and understand that. Total cost is equal to total fixed cost plus total variable cost. So here is our total variable cost. We want to know its change to find marginal cost. Well, they say that I can actually use total cost in a marginal cost formula and it will be the same. And that's true because if we look at a change in total cost, that's going to be the same as a change in total variable cost because fixed costs don't change. So if you're looking purely at changes, then it's true that the change in total cost is exactly the same as the change in total variable cost. So be careful what numbers you're getting and what numbers you're looking for, because now there's two ways to calculate marginal cost, and they'll both give you the exact same number. Okay, so let's put all these costs on one slide. I promised we were going to do that in a previous segment. And this is one of those things that you might want to, put up on your bathroom mirror so you can see it every day when you get up. And you'll see that it's actually pretty straightforward in the end. We said if you added your total fixed costs to all your total variable costs, then you'd have your total cost of production. All right, then if you divided each one of those by the output, or quantity, or total product, those are all the same things. Total fixed cost divided by output is average fixed cost, okay? Total variable cost divided by output gives me average variable cost. Yeah, makes sense. And so total cost divided by output would give me average total cost. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new cost formulas. And the last one, the marginal cost, that's equal to the change in total variable cost or the change in total cost, remember? As a result of one more unit of output. So it's the change in total cost or change in total variable cost divided by the change in output. So that's all of our cost curves all on one slide. Now let's take a look at what we might do to graph these things. In a previous segment, we took the product curves and then graphed the variable cost curve and the marginal cost curve. So in a previous segment, we actually have graphed the marginal cost and the average variable cost curve. And these are two of the most common cost curves we're going to use for the rest of this course. So the other one that we add that's new, we just calculated is average total cost and the average fixed cost. So the first observation I'd like to make is that as quantity keeps increasing, average fixed cost is going to be always declining, because we're just taking the same fixed cost number and divide by more and more and more and more and more quantity. So average fixed cost will look just like that, constantly declining. But let's look at the average total cost. Recall that when we did marginal cost and average variable cost, we saw that marginal cost cut right at its minimum. And that's because anytime marginal is below average, average will keep falling. As soon as marginal cuts above average, average starts rising. So therefore, marginal is cutting average right at its minimum. Now, the average total cost is completely related to this production process too. So it'll keep declining until marginal cost touches it. Everywhere MC is below average total cost, ATC will keep falling. And then marginal cost pokes above it, and so average total cost starts rising again. So the relationship between marginal cost and average total cost is very similar to the relationship between marginal cost and average variable cost, in that it cuts both of them at their minimums. So keep that in mind as we go down the road and start working with these cost curves a little bit later. Okay, that's it for this short segment as we round out the rest of the cost curves and then put them all on one graph to see how they look towards each other. In the next section, we're going to really emphasize the three most important cost curves and some of the key points that we pull off on those cost curves. Some of it will be review, and there's one significant point that's brand new. And then we'll look at the total cost curves and their shapes as well, and a little bit more stuff to round out the chapter. So we'll see you when we get there.